Hi folks, today we're going to have a look at one of the latest offerings from Olight, the Javelot Turbo. Let's just take him out. And as you can see, it comes in this very nice hard Olight branded carry case, along with the holster, charging cable and the manual. Let's just move that out of the way and bring him back. And I'm going to put it up alongside the Javelot Pro, which at first glance they look very similar. However, let's talk through some of the initial and more obvious differences, which is the get that one out of the way. The turbo version runs with a battery pack powered from 21-700s, two of them, whereas the Pro runs from a battery pack with 18650s. You can't actually remove the 18650s or the 2100s. You can for either buy a additional battery pack, which you simply unscrew and put your replacement one in there if you want to take more out into the field with you or what have you. Those packs are not interchangeable. The other significant difference with the Turbo is the upgraded beam distance from, I think it's 1090 on the Pro and 1300 on the Turbo. And the run times of these two, as you probably expect, but both using different battery packs, are quite considerably different. Hopefully we can see that. So for the Javelot Turbo, the turbo mode, or level 1, whichever you want to call it, is 1300 lumens, and we can see there the run times. That's going to run at full power for 10 minutes. It's then going to drop to 62%. And as you can see, you get the drift as it moves along. Now, I made that a total run time of around 4.8 hours. I don't think you'll get that in practice because you'll be turning it on and off and engaging its turbo and so forth. But if you just left it, that appears to be what you're going to get, your 4.8 hours. And then right down at the very bottom there on its lowest mode, at 15 lumens, we're going to get on there 318 hours, which, what's that? 12-13 days, something like that. Let's compare that to the Javelot Pro. Now, one of the first things, of course, that jumps out there is that the turbo or level 1 mode, 2100 lumens versus 1300 lumens, and it steps down to 1000 lumens. Your turbo will step down to 800 lumens, and we're going to hold that for 10 minutes plus 130 on the Javelot Pro. Now, what was interesting there when I just compared that is that actually on Olight's web page, the turbo mode is listed as lasting for 5 minutes and then 145. So I'm not sure which of those two is correct. So the manual contradicts what's on the web page. They're both IPX8 rated, drop resistant, etc, etc, etc. So the initial kind of conclusions there in between these two are that the turbo has the upgraded battery, which is going to obviously help it with the extended run times, significantly extended run times as well. But also the I emphasize apparent drop in power there from 2100 lumens down to 1300 lumens. That's a little bit of a red herring, so don't let that kind of just fool you at the moment, because that I'll show you that later when we're out after dark, and that's where you do start to see the significant difference between these two particular lights. The other thing worth mentioning as well, on the Pro we have the MC5 rear charging tail cap, and you can get a magnetic remote switch for that as well. Whereas on the Turbo we've got perhaps the more common MCC as a bit more standard. That's perhaps a consideration if you've got other Olights and you don't really want to be mixing up the tail caps. You'll also notice as well this little bit of thread in here. That's so this can use, rather than the magnetic tail cap, you can use the attachable pressure switch as well. And though either way, the pressure switches that you can attach to those are for use, well, generally with firearm shooting. So without any further ado, let's take them out and see what they actually do. Hi folks, we've got the Javelot turbo now in its 15 lumen mode. So not really much to see there, is there? So one tap and we'll knock him up a touch and carry on to its maximum of 1300 lumens. And as you can see, it's cutting right down into the distance there, the end of that path. No problem at all. What we notice there as well, we've got quite a nice little bit of peripheral spill as well. Let me turn that one off his head. Now we've got the Pro, and we'll cycle through the modes there. That's our lowest. Next. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? There's your turbo. And now let me put them, try not to drop either of them, put them alongside each other. Hopefully the difference should be obvious. The Pro has got a slightly different tint on the beam, a little bit more oranger, and a wider spot. And you can see that it's a strange noise in the background. What on earth is that? Have a look in a minute. The turbo overlays it quite easily. Let me just see what that strange noise is. Don't know what that was. So let's put our Pro back on its highest mode again. About 100 meters there to those trees. Let me zoom in there. Let's put our turbo alongside. You can see there that's a considerably smaller spot. So obviously what they've done here is they've lowered the let me just turn that one off. They've lowered the actual total lumen output but concentrated the beam. Don't know why there always has to be train compass whenever I'm trying to do this. Yeah, so they've increased the candela, that's the intensity of the beam, to create the extra distance, compensating for the reduction in the power, and then of course increase the battery size to give you the much enhanced run time. So that's a combination of those two things. And I think for how this light's intended as a little bit of a sporting type light, you know, mounting on a rifle or things like that, this much tighter beam is exactly what you need. Not so much there, that much wider beam. However, you might prefer that wider beam. You might not. You might prefer that and the little bit of extra range. And again, you can see there that the turbo is blotting out the Pro, hence the increased range. And I think that makes it pretty obvious, really, doesn't it, so what the difference is. So when I was looking at these two, and you know, I suppose the question arises, which one's better? Well, neither of them really. I mean, the turbo's a little bit more expensive, but you might prefer that type of beam profile over that. you might want the extra run time. You might not be bothered about the extra run time. Let me just turn this one off now, and this is always difficult when you try and get some distance. That's about as far as I can actually see. Yeah, I'm on full zoom there now, so that's, you know, that's quite a wide spot. And I can't find anything where I can see any further, unfortunately, from here. The difference now becomes even more pronounced, doesn't it, between the two? In fact, you know, a significant difference between the beam profile. Hopefully that's made it absolutely crystal clear and obvious what the difference between the two is. And in summary, we've got a much tighter beam with a lower lumen output, but as you can see, that's making no difference to its reach. In fact, it's the intensity of the beam that's helping the reach, and is outperforming in that respect the Pro. On the other hand, the Pro has that much wider spot. Thank you very much, folks. Thanks. Hi folks, I'm quite a bit further on, probably about 40 minutes, something like that. Just thought I'd stop here again and just to, hopefully that demonstrates again the kind of the key differences between them. But you probably notice now, yeah, they honestly both had a real good caning in there. The Pro, that's getting hot, but it hasn't once yet stepped down, and I've literally been studying with it turned on now well in excess of 10 minutes, and it hasn't stepped down. I'm a bit surprised actually. That's quite warm, but nothing that I would be worried about. On the other hand, the turbo don't seem to have even knocked a dent in the battery, and that is like chalk and cheese in comparison to this in terms of the temperature. They've both been on at the same time, and the turbo hasn't stepped down either, and to be honest with you, I'm not kind of expecting it to. When Olight excuse me, are talking about the step downs, I would assume that isn't actually timed. I would assume that that's an estimate based on the internal temperature of the flashlight. It's not particularly cold tonight, so I guess it depends on where you're actually using it. But this one here, this is really holding its output, and it's not generating any heat at all. That's barely warm. Really impressed with that. I'll say this. Ooh, but that's 2,000 lumens, of course, versus 1,300. Yeah, I wouldn't like to choose between them, you know. I mean, you might prefer that type of beam, hadn't you, over that? But I think those the heat consideration, enabling an extended runtime in terms of it not stepping down, and the increased battery capacity, that might just pinch it, mightn't it? Even if you did prefer that beam profile. I think the best idea is, chaps, you know, just buy them both. I've done. Thanks very much.